targeting Urban Meyer or Josh McDaniels as possible replacements for Jason Garrett. Jerry Jones was asked about his level of commitment to his head coach. Take a listen.
Let me tell you that no one in this country has earned the right to say, I'm a Jason Garrett man more than me. I am his man. And we want the very same thing, and that's for our players to play at their very best. And we want his staff to coach at their very best. The bottom line is we get graded. I'm in business. I don't have to win the Super Bowl in business every year. I can come in sixth and have a hell of a year. But in this business, you've got to come in first. You've got to come in first. And so fundamentally, you've asked for something that's a very narrow window to begin with. I want Jason to get it done.
Nick, all week we've been hearing varying degrees of the same rumor. No matter how you say it, whether Jason Garrett's fired today, after this game, next week, it's all he's on the hot seat. You think Jason Garrett really needs to win it all to save his job?
I don't, actually. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for Mike Freeman, who is the person who said if he doesn't, pardon me, if he doesn't win the Super Bowl, he's going to be no longer the Cowboys head coach. I think I would walk that back a tiny bit. I would say if they make the Super Bowl, Jason Garrett's not getting fired. Like, it would be shocking to me if the Dallas Cowboys make their first Super Bowl since 1995, make their first conference championship game in over 20 years if he is, in fact, fired. But I think Jerry Jones is planning to fire Jason Garrett because Jerry Jones is not planning for this team to make the Super Bowl. And I don't know if that sixth, what he was talking about business, was just the number he picked or if it was intentional. Because if it was intentional, it would make sense. Because right now, the Dallas Cowboys, with all this talent, with Dak playing the best year of his career, with Zeke paid, with Amari Cooper there, with the highest paid offensive line in modern NFL history, they are the sixth best team in the NFC. That ain't good enough. There's no excuse for that. There's no explanation for that other than poor coaching, poor situational football, poor starts to games, and the latter two examples that I just used both relate to coaching. So I do think Jason Garrett's going to get fired. I also think that if they were to make it to the Super Bowl, it would mean they get red hot down the stretch, similar to last year, except they go 2 steps further. I don't think he would be fired if that happens. But at this point, the Cowboys are far more likely, Bart, to miss the playoffs entirely than they are to even make a conference championship game.
But we have seen teams get hot, and we know that they are a talented football team. But the thing is, this is a results-based business. And Jason Garrett's been the head coach for 10 years, and the results haven't been great. Understanding that they're in a unique window where they had Dak Prescott, they had a cheap quarterback, and the new model of how you're going to win in the NFL is having a cheap, quarterback on a rookie deal so that you can go out and get expensive pieces. When you look at what the Dallas Cowboys have done, they've built this offensive line to try and bring back the glory days based on a running game, solid defense, and defensive ends that can get to the quarterback. That hasn't resulted in playoff wins, and it ultimately falls at the feet of the head coach. Jason Garrett just doesn't have the it factor. He doesn't make teams believe that he can give them the answers to the test. And I can't remember the upset that they've had that surprised us that, man, we couldn't believe that they beat this football team. They shouldn't be underdogs against any team, let alone not having a winning record over teams above 500.
The last time the Cowboys, to me, won a game that shocked me was the Thursday night game. I remember I was traveling. I was on my way to watch my son play basketball in California when the game happened. Last season, Thursday night, I think it was in November, against the New Orleans Saints. The game that they won, it was either 13-12 or 14-13. Right. It was a very low-scoring game. It's now Thanksgiving 2019. And your point that they shouldn't be underdogs, they've only been underdogs once. The game in New England, where everyone's an underdog. That speaks to underachieving. Not that the odds makers have it exactly right, but there's 2 teams have been favorites in 10 or more games this year. The New England Patriots, who have parlayed that into being 10-1, and the Dallas Cowboys, who have parlayed that into being a game above 500.
You also don't have a ton of time with this group of guys, right? You don't have a year or two to play with it. You can say, well, let's see how he gets this year, and maybe next year with a fresh start. This is it. Jerry Jones is all in, plus you're going to have to pay Dak Prescott come next year. And we haven't even talked about this looming contract that is there on the table, most likely for Dak Prescott. So time is of the essence when it comes to what you're going to do with Jason Garrett.
Absolutely, and they'd be lucky if they get Dak Prescott for under $40 million. I mean, and what does that do to your locker room? What does that do to the other free agents? You know, what does that do to the luxury pieces that you have? They went out and got Quinn. They went out and got Bennett so that they can feel like they had a championship caliber team with veteran experience, guys that have been successful. Bennett brings in Super Bowl experience as well. They've given Jason Garrett everything that he needed. He has the best roster in football. And what has he done with it? He's underachieved over and over again. And I remember like yesterday when he turned down the Ravens job and when they brought in John Harbaugh. Well, what has John Harbaugh done in that time? He's been to the AFC Championship. He's won a Super Bowl. His team is always in contention. You have a belief that when the Ravens are in it, they have an opportunity to win a Super Bowl. We put a ceiling on this Dallas Cowboys that maybe they can make it to the NFC Championship. And that's just falling short, especially when they give you everything that you need to be successful.
John Harbaugh in that time has 10 playoff wins. Jason Garrett has 2 playoff wins. You mentioned multiple appearances in the AFC Championship game. And that was, to me, going into the year, what Garrett was going to have to achieve to keep his job, was at the very least get off this list right here. Most games coached amongst active coaches without a single conference championship game appearance. Look at that. Adam Gase at 59. He already got fired once.
Right.
Pat Shurmur, and might be on his way to being fired again in short order. Pat Shurmur, he's already been fired once, is likely on his way to being fired a second time. Bill O'Brien, who I'm highly critical of, but he has taken all the power in Houston, so I don't know who would fire him. And then look at Jason Garrett. It's not only that he's on this list, it's that he's got as many games coached nearly as Bill O'Brien and Shurmur combined.
Right.
No one can say, and that's what Jerry's point was, no one can say they're more of a Jason Garrett man than me.
He's given him so many years of a chance.
And I understand why. Because you look at it year by year, and you get why Jason Garrett was brought back each year. The first 3 years, they're 8-8.
Yep.
Now, I think that's underachieving because I thought Tony Romo was an excellent quarterback. I thought he was way unfairly maligned as far as their lack of wins. I didn't put it on him, but they're 8-8 3 straight years. Then they're 12-4 in a kind of make-or-break year for Jason Garrett. That's the Dez caught it year. The next year, Tony's hurt, so they fall apart. The next year, they're 13-3 with Dak. So
and Frederick got hurt last year.
And the year after that, Jerry put it all on the commissioner. We would have been in the Super Bowl, but you suspended our running back 6 games. Last year, they could have fired him at 3-4. But what did they do at 3-4? They traded for Amari Cooper. You're not going to fire your coach when you are signaling we still think we're in it. They end up turning 3-4 into the playoffs, and a playoff win. So of course he comes back.
Right.
But now it's 6-5. The conversation, Jenna, was what does he have to do to save his job? I think he can lose his job today if they lose to the Buffalo Bills.
See, but Jerry coming out and saying this, we all understand that the fact that they didn't give him an extension at the end of the year
made it clear.
Made it clear that he was a lame duck coach. So why do you have to re-emphasize that this time on a short week? What that does is that makes the assistant coaches start thinking about, well, I need to polish my resume up. How much attention to detail are you going to have when you're trying to balance the holidays, family coming in, the game plan, also trying to reach out to guys that you have, friends and allies you have within the coaching business to see, hey, will I have a spot maybe potentially coming into your organization because I feel like I'm going to be fired at the end of the year. It's just a distraction. And why would you be adding distractions already with the elephant in the room, understanding that these players know that they have a hell of a run that they have to go on, understanding that the Philadelphia Eagles within this division has an easier path to the playoffs than they do. And if they lose today, I don't know if firing Jason Garrett today helps them. I think that Jason Garrett, if I'm going to go down, I said before, I'm going to go down on my shield. I'm going to make sure to say, Kellen Moore,